Now, let's say we have the following data in an Excel spreadsheet. This is categorical data. As you can see, it's not numerical. We've got different categories here. And categorical data lends itself very nicely to analysis using either circle graphs or pictographs. So this video is going to show you how to do both circle graphs and pictographs in Excel. The first thing you want to do is make sure that you have two columns. The first column that includes your different categories, and the second column that actually includes your data. In this case, we've got the percentage of households for whom their primary use of the internet is each of these different labels or different categories. So anytime we want to add in a graph in Excel of any type, we're going to go to the Insert tab. Now in this case, we want a circle graph, otherwise known as a pie graph. And we're just going to put in a normal, like a regular circle graph, not a 3D one here. So just a normal circle graph. Now, sometimes Excel will automatically detect which data it thinks you want to use for the graph, and so it might already put data into your graph. If it doesn't, then what you want to do is select data, and we can add, and we want to edit the series values part here. So we're going to click on this button right here. And what that button allows us to do is actually go and select what our data will be for this circle graph. So we're going to select these numbers here. Okay, we can click that button again and it will expand again. And as you can see, it's automatically broken up our circle graph into sections that represent these different percentages. We don't necessarily have to have a series name in here. We can label the like any axes or series and that kind of stuff after we've got everything in our graph. So we're just going to hit OK. Now in order to make sure that we've got our labels done correctly, we can hit Edit here. And again, we're going to select our label range, and that's going to be our different categories that are here. Hit OK. And OK again. Now, right now, our circle graph isn't quite showing in the way that we might like it to. And so what we can do is up here where it says Chart Layouts, we can choose the kind of layout that we want. So if we want labels and percentages, for example, to be on our graph, then we might choose this one. This one has the series labels kind of set up like a legend at the top of the chart. This one here would have the series labels at the bottom of the chart. Usually though with a circle graph, it's often helpful to have our labels and our percentages right on the graph. Once we have the graph set up like this, we can actually take any of these labels and move them if we want them in a slightly different position. We can relabel the title. So this would be primary use of the internet. Now our data here is a little bit old. I couldn't find any newer data for this particular topic. Primary use of the internet in 1999. Here we might want to move some of these labels so that they're a little bit more nicely spread out. And there's our circle graph. Now, if we were to add up the percentages here, so let's use the sum function to add up all of these, we would notice that it adds up to 100%. And a circle graph is really useful when we're comparing percentages particularly, or we're comparing certain categories to all the other categories that are involved in our data. And so circle graphs are usually used when we have something totaling 100%. Pictographs, on the other hand, don't necessarily need to be used for data totaling 100%. As we can see here, this is just internet use in general. It's not primary use of the internet. So when we did our circle graph here, we were looking at each person selected only one of these options in a survey, and that's why we get a total of 100%. Whereas here, people were allowed to select multiple items or multiple categories as an answer. And so you see, actually, the first category itself has 93%. So in other words, 93% of people said that they use the internet for email. And this is data that's a little bit more up to date, so this is from 2009. But if we look at the total here, it's quite a bit more than 100%. So we're not necessarily comparing each of these percentages to the whole. What we're doing is comparing the percentages of each category to look and see which one is higher or lower than others. And so here we might want to do a pictograph instead of circle graph. Again, we're going to go to Insert, and here we're going to start with a bar graph. I'm just going to select the first one here. Okay. Again, I want to select my data. So the series is going to be the actual numbers or the percentages. Oops. Not there. And the second one, the series values, it's going to be the percentages. And hit OK. And the axis labels, right, or in other words, the labels that are going to be on the left-hand side here, that's going to be all of our categories. Okay, now let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay. Now, if we want to turn this into, we can get rid of this series thing on here. And let's pick a better title than all these numbers. So internet use by percent of individuals in 2009. Now if we want to make this into a pictograph instead of a bar graph, what we're going to do is right click on the bars, and we're going to format data series and go to fill. Now the fill is what's going to actually fill up those bars in the bar graph. So if we would like to fill it with pictures in order to make a pictograph, we can hit picture here, and you can either choose clip art photo or you can select your own photo that you have saved as a file. So if we go to file, then you can browse for the photo that you want on your computer. Okay, so I've selected my file, and I'm going to select stack, and we can choose a scale. So I can say that I want for every 5%, there's going to be one picture that's used. So if I close this, it should update my pictograph. So we've got the little Twitter bird in here. So every 2 of the Twitter bird represents 5%. Okay, so the first category here sells goods or services on auction sites. The percent of people that use the internet for that purpose was 10% plus a little bit less than 5%, so about 13 or 14% there. Again, either a pictograph or a bar graph of some sort is probably the way to go for this kind of data, because the percentages don't add up to 100%, so we're not really looking at what percent is each category of the whole. We're looking at comparing the different percentages to each other.